While most MSPs are out there hunting endlessly for new clients, the smart ones know their richest opportunities lie in the fields they already own. My name's James Steele and this is Harvest, where MSPs and industry experts share proven ways to grow profitable revenue from your current customer base. No theory, no fluff, just field-tested strategies that work. Let's grow.
So for me, it was about time. Making sure you've got the structure of your commercial facing part of the organisation focused in the right way. You need to have a relationship with the head of marketing or the marketing director because they need to use technology just as much as any other part of the organisation. You've got lots of customers, and there's probably quite a lot of opportunity within your sort of network of customers where you can introduce people to each other. You have to have the confidence and the commitment to continue doing what you're doing. And if you're doing enough of the right activities and the right behaviours in the right way, consistently enough and well enough, you will get the results.
Oh, sorry, what was that? You're lacking nuggets of gold wisdom to grow your MSP from existing customers. Well, you come to the right place. Now listen, we have got a fantastic guest. You've probably heard sell more to your existing clients, and let's be honest, we say that more or less every episode, but Graham Stead doesn't just say it. He did it. And after selling his MSP to CMI, he stuck around as the sales director and then helped that business grow to £18 million in turnover. And he did that largely by embedding these expansion habits into his team. So in this episode, that's what we're talking about. He's going to unpack the structure, the mindset needed, and also that kind of tactical cadence of the activities that really, I think, are probably the thing that made this work, and also where MSPs go wrong with it. You're going to get a lot from this one. I hope you've got a notepad ready. If you're out running, walking, you may need to find a bench and sit down. If you're driving, perhaps you're going to have to pull over. Who knows? Loads of gold. Enjoy this one. So, Graham Stead, welcome to Harvest. It is wonderful to have you along.
Thanks for inviting me, James. Looking forward to the conversation.
No worries. Listen, I'm itching to get into this one and pick your brains. But first of all, we have a tradition to do, and that is the misconception about you. So what do people get wrong about you when they first meet you?
I guess maybe thinking about it, it's having run sort of the MSP that I had and then sort of selling that to CMI, etc. A lot of people that know me now think I've always been a salesperson, whereas actually I started as a true techie, back right at the start of my career, working for HP before all the mergers, acquisition. My first job was fixing HP LaserJets and HP net servers. You remember those things?
Yes,
that's what
yes.
I started my career as. But then that's good as well, because actually having a sort of an understanding of that from my own background is pretty useful as well.
Yeah, definitely. You tick that box of credibility that you've got that sort of technical mindset, but you quite quickly switched into the sales side. So obviously you've worn multiple hats. You've even done a bit of a sort of SaaS thing as well with the Go Hybrid, I believe. But what I'm really keen to chat to you about is the fact that you successfully exited an MSP, but then stayed around to make it successful and really sort of focus on the sales side as sales director, growing it to 18 million, wasn't it? Which is fantastic. So this is all about existing customers, how we can get more out of them. So if there's some of the sort of the specific things that you were looking for to make sure that you were expanding clients as best you could, is there a process to that you went through we can share with the listeners?
When we started the business, it wasn't an MSP, it was sort of an IT projects business. Once we exited that business and sold to CMI, we had quite a lot of conversations at the board level then about how do we continue our growth. Do we do that through acquisition? Do we just focus purely on existing customers, etc.? And ultimately the conclusion was, it's a mixture of both. So they had this sort of reasonably sizable group of customers that they hadn't really gone after. So I said we don't really need to spend too much money investment in marketing, etc.
Just sold like one or two services to them.
Exactly that. And especially because we'd acquired businesses that either didn't have the capability, didn't have the sales or engine within them, so they had a core of good customers, but they just hadn't really hit that white space.
Okay.
So that's what we'd really focused on. But for me, it's more around the habits and actually making sure you're embedding those things. It's all well and good having a white space, a spreadsheet tool, whatever you use, but unless you're actually doing that consistently and building that habit into the organisation, you're only going to get short-term gains out of that.
It's just a document that sits there.
Exactly that.
Yeah, okay. So we're kicking off with white space, and of course we're interested in that because that's the day job is sales builder, and yes, we have white space tools built into that. But however you're doing it, what Graham's saying here is it doesn't really matter. If you're not using it, it's kind of irrelevant. So whether it's a spreadsheet or whatever it is you've got, I've seen that happen quite a lot. And my advice to you is to make sure you take a look at how often your team is actually using your whitespace tool. It's got to be like anything else. It's got to be a habit. So bake it into use, into one at least regular recurring meeting this month.
We had a small number of salespeople, and with the way we operate, we sort of allocate or split our, I guess, commercial facing part of the business into sort of sales and then sort of the client services, so much more the customer success team.
Okay, and is it those guys, because this varies from MSP to MSP, so is it those guys that concentrate on the expansion and retention side of things then?
No, I guess the way we did is the sales side of things was the sales account management, and the client success team, client services team, was very much more around the service review and the day-to-day point of contact. What we did do was those transactional sales. I need a new laptop, or I just need an engineer to come in to move some kit for half a day. Those things that the customer's going to do anyway and don't really need sales effort, we allocated to the client success team. So they did do some. Why
is that important, Graham? Because that's an interesting point, I think, is that sort of transactional stuff. Why is it important that goes somewhere else other than the sales team?
Time. I'm a big believer in time. And again, it's not something new you're going to hear, but a salesperson has a target, for example. So, that target, is sitting there for, the annual target. If you chunk that down into months and you chunk that down into days, you can chunk that down into an hour. Every person responsible for selling should know what they need to sell per hour. And if you've then got really expensive salespeople being focused or distracted on, having to transact the sale of a laptop, for example, that might take a couple of hours with the sort of to and froing, building a quote, conversations, they're never going to get that return. So for me, it was about time. Making sure you've got the structure of your commercial facing part of the organisation focused in the right way.
You have to be so careful of this one. It's so easy for good salespeople to get pulled into that low value admin busy work, and it just kills momentum for them, for your business. Time is their most valuable asset. So I think a good idea here is just to review the last 10 inbound transactional requests that your sales team have handled. Have a look at them, break them down, and then try moving the next 10 to your service desk or perhaps your customer service team to free up their focus, depending on what your team structure is and the size of your business. But put your own spin on it. But think about offloading them and see if you can work out a way there to free up more time for them to focus on what matters. That makes total sense to me. So you've got the inside sales team that are concentrating on that side of things. So then when you're thinking about going out then in terms of you talked about the behaviors, we've got the white space, which just for those listening, if you're not familiar with this idea, it's just simply mapping all of your services and all your customers and looking for where those gaps are. And so that gives you then the information. But how do you then turn that into the business potential that is there?
It's just making sure you've got the right relationships, the right connections, and you're having those discussions. Just say 10 years ago, your primary point of contact may have been the MD, it may have been the FD, it could have been the office manager or a sort of PA or somebody like that. But they were typically the only point of contact you had. So it's really about expanding that out. You need to have a relationship with the head of marketing or the marketing director, because they need to use technology just as much as any other part of the organisation. You have to make sure you're having those conversations with the right people and expanding that stakeholder relationship and actually looking.
So were you sort of advising your account managers then to ensure they had like a certain number of touch points and that they to ensure that they had that enough routes into the companies?
Yeah, totally. Establish more points of contact. If people change, you've got that sort of, you've de-risked.
Which happens a lot.
Which happens a lot, absolutely.
More than it used to, yeah.
Yeah, but it's that is still absolutely relevant. You've just got to make sure you're having those relationships to understand what the head of marketing or the head of HR or head of operations requires out of their use of technology or their team's use of technology. And even taking that next step and thinking about actually partners. Let's just use marketing, for example. Your customer may not have a marketing team. They may have outsourced that. So actually having the relationship with those strategic partners that are external to your customer to understand what they're requiring. Again, it's establishing a habit, but it's changing the mindset a little bit. So you're not just focused on sort of the people that are paid directly as employees by your customer, but actually looking at the wider supply chain.
Right, I love this. Okay, cool. It's mapping as many people within the accounts as you can. Also thinking about external vendors, which is great. I've not heard that sort of mentioned before. That's Can I ask you, in terms of sort of the types of conversations, do you have any advice for people perhaps are sort of thinking, well, we're in touch with our customers, and I feel like I know who they are, but in terms of how to approach, whether it's the conversation to expand or how to sort of prioritize what you're expanding, you know where your gaps are.
You start back from actually just making sure we talk about time, but give yourself the time and the discipline to do that. So in our context, there's lots of activities, tactical things you need to do, but the outcome is increased sales or audit or whatever, from that side of things.
Right, let's get tactical on that. Let's think about his activities then. What do you recommend? What should people be doing?
It's all, it's just, first of all, making sure, it's a spreadsheet. I just understand, what activities I need to do. It's what you have to do on a sort of a weekly, daily basis in order to make sure you're getting those conversations. We're trying to get to outcomes of conversations now with the customers that are going to uncover the new opportunities. Making sure that you set yourself the target of 1 or 5, and it depends on the scale of the business and number of customers. But you're going to make 1, say 5 new stakeholder contacts a week within your customer base.
Okay. Yeah.
We talk about referrals, but when we talk about referrals in MSP context, a lot of people think about people referring business to us so we can go and sell more services. But being a connector to your customer, referring to them, you've got lots of customers, and there's probably quite a lot of opportunity within your sort of network of customers where you can introduce people to each other. So each can sell their service to each, or where they can partner up and hit their target market because they work in similar target markets. So, it's, making sure you're making those introductions, so you're helping your clients.
A very cool concept, and it's not one that I hear done much at all. Being the person who introduces your clients to each other really does create that serious strategic stickiness that Graham's talking about. I would say, why don't you think of one client, just one client this week who could benefit from an intro to another? Have a look through your CRM. And maybe broker that connection for yourself. And just see what impact that has. One of those. That's quite an interesting concept, actually. We did have Yuri Vanderslice was on the show, and he was talking about sort of building community and doing that and bringing people into a room together to make sure that actually happens. And there's value in that. Well, why is that important to your business? How does that actually help you? What's the net?
Well, I think it's about making sure that your clients are seeing you more than just a supplier of service into them. It sounds a bit corny, doesn't it? A bit cliche to become that more.
No, I don't think so.
Strategic sort of provider, such and such. I look back, over the time we've, the business I've been involved in. I can count probably comfortably on one hand how many of our suppliers, partners that I really felt really valued our relationship and actually really tried to help us grow. If you can get to that level of relationship, or that perceived sort of that perception that actually you're not just that sort of customer and supplier, that there is a genuine interest in helping your customer be better, be more successful. And that's not just through selling your IT MSP services, but it might be through helping other introductions or other ways you can do that. Because then you start to see your customer start to understand that you're in this not for your own sort of selfish reasons entirely, because then when you come back to your question a moment ago, is when you have the conversation about, hey, Mr. Customer, I'd love to speak to your head of marketing or your head of HR or partner that does your outsourced finance for you, they're going to be more receptive to facilitating those engagements because they know you're not in it for making that sort of hard sell, and they're not worried about what you're going to do when you have that conversation.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that idea. So that's something nice and tactical you can do. I've just constantly got an automation head on these days. You could cross-reference sort of the CRM notes and that sort of stuff, and almost like suggestions of like, oh, this company's doing this, and maybe they should be speaking to these guys or whatever. Try and take some of the legwork out of it for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, all that hunting. Yeah, exactly. There's so much time you sort of spend trying to sort of understand, and you sort of connecting the sort of the commonality between them. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All about that. There must be some great potential there.
Yeah, I think there probably is. Now. This episode is sponsored by Sales Builder, where I work. I really wanted to tell you about us because I see so many MSP sales teams buried in admin instead of talking to customers and building relationships. We help you automate your sales process with standardized product catalogs and professional proposals. Our service matrix, or the white space module, that's the bit that shows you visually where the opportunities are in your customer base, from service gaps to upcoming renewals. Everything links directly with your PSA and, of course, your distributors. If you'd like to free up your sales team's time and spot more revenue opportunities, simply connect with me on LinkedIn or head to salesbuilder.com. Let's get back to it. So, listen, you're involved in obviously helping other MSPs now sort of up their game, do a much better job on the sales front. From those that you speak to, are there any like common things that you think these are like? If you had to just single out, let's say 2 things maybe that, okay, these are the common mistakes of like, I can see they're underperforming. What are the mistakes they're making and what are the signs to look for?
Yeah, that's
I'm thinking in the context of like the sort of existing customers as well. So I'll totally put you on the spot there. But
yeah,
if you do have something come to mind.
I was just thinking of a couple of customers I'm working with at the moment and speaking to. They've probably gone from that sort of 600-700K revenue with existing customers, but not really got much growth out of those. And one in particular has managed to sort of double his business, touching the 1.5 million at the moment, just from expanding his existing customers. I think the mistake people make is thinking that they have to go with the new customer approach, and going with that. And we all know marketing doesn't happen overnight. I touched on the time thing important earlier, but the reason growth habits, it's about those 1% incremental gains, day after day, week after week, etc. You have to have the confidence and the commitment to continue doing what you're doing. And if you're doing enough of the right activities and the right behaviours in the right way, consistently enough and well enough, you will get the results. It's about having that commitment and confidence and belief that you're doing the right thing. And that will deliver what it does.
What are some of the mistakes you see? So I'm just trying to think of sort of almost giving people a bit of a plan there. So they've got the white space, they've got the making multiple contact, got structure, got some great stuff there.
Yeah.
What is there anything else that you see sort of the mistakes that people make? I mean, I think investing solely in new business is a big one. Any signs there that you're going astray there that you come across? Any others to look for?
It's about making sure you've got the right measures in place. So maybe that's exactly it. Is actually, pushing ahead into doing whatever it is you've chosen to do for whatever reason you've chosen to do it. But it's making sure you've got those baseline sort of analytics, measurements, KPIs, whatever you want to call them, so you can understand whether they are actually, whether the dial really is moving. If you haven't actually measured, understanding, how your metrics have changed, the meaningful metrics that are demonstrating that your audience is growing and that your brand's getting greater awareness, then it's by having those metrics that give you the confidence that actually what you're doing is providing the incremental gains. And if you keep doing it, then the results will come.
Yeah,
so
I think that's great advice.
The direct answer to your question is just making sure you've got the right metrics in place, simple metrics, and monitor them.
Yeah, and that's so true of so many, well, any business essentially, isn't it? You've got to be measuring the right elements to it. But you definitely need to have the whole thing singing together. Yeah.
And I think maybe another bugbear of mine is discounting. It's clearly it's clearly just as relevant as it is to sort of new customers, existing customers. Why are we discounting? And do we understand? That there might be reasons or strategic reasons why you're going to make a decision to discount something. Do you actually understand what the impact of that is down the line? Do you
think that happens too easily? Do you think people just fall back on that straight away? Or
I think exactly that, and that's in my opinion, lazy salesmanship to some extent. It can be poor sales leadership, or a whole host of reasons why it happens. But if you just let's just touch some numbers. I mean, let's just say we're doing 5 orders a month of 5k. Let's just say 5k gross profit. If you discount each one of those by 10%, that's $2,500 a month in lost margin. You multiply that's 30k a year. Yeah, and that's just based on 5 orders a month at that 5k. And that's 30k. It will go straight to the bottom line. That's I see that so often. It's one thing we try to fight hard against. Discounting in the MSPs we had.
Interesting. No, that's a point I really like, actually, because I've worked in both businesses where actually many moons ago we would never discount, and it actually made things very, very simple. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to do if you're in the early stages of growing your MSP. I can understand that, but it can be nice to work in a business where you just don't do it.
It doesn't necessarily mean if you've got an existing customer or a new customer that's sort of asking for a discount or, for whatever reasons need it done at a lower price, it doesn't necessarily mean it's just a no, but it shouldn't be a default yes.
Yes.
It shouldn't just be caving into it. Making sure you're getting some, what was I told before, the phrase of equal or greater value. So more than happy to give you a discount or a free day, something of equal or greater value. And that's a great segue into asking for a referral or testimonial or a case study or something there, so you're actually getting something in return that's going to help you grow your business.
Yeah, because there's going to be huge value attached to a case study. Be amazed, if you can use that correctly, you can generate a lot of business from it. 100%. Discounting equals lazy sales. However, also, if you're trying to run a streamlined MSP, I would also add that that's another thing, ad hoc pricing arrangements, that's going to slow you down across the business. So try and avoid it if you can. But as Graham's saying, the most important thing is if you look at it, it looks small now, but in year end, it's considerably more. How about you have a quick look and audit this week how many deals in the last 3 months were discounted and why that was. And if it's essential, take that advice around looking at, what can we have in return? And I'm a big fan of, there's huge value in getting customer testimonials. You can spend 10 minutes with a customer on a video call, have a very natural conversation, get some warm feedback from them about your business, reuse that on social, reuse that in your sales calls, and suddenly you've got enormous value there that will see deals over the line and maybe even potentially get you a few new ones as well. So yeah, make sure it's a reciprocal thing and there's something coming back. Don't just give away your margin unnecessarily. So tell me, are there any other areas you like to talk about in terms of your current methodology and what you like to work through customers? And let's say I've got Steel MSP Enterprises and I've come to you and I've said, Graham, this is like, I'm stuck right in the middle. We're doing okay, but I can't really grow. Yeah. Where would you be looking first? We've covered some great points already.
So one thing I found that was really, really successful was, and this came out actually of COVID times, funny enough, because sort of when we were all in remote working and you didn't see your teams and you weren't in the office anymore. I mean, I'm sure every business started to have that sort of start of day, Monday to Friday, half-hour little huddles with the teams. So that's what we did. But we continued that on. We dropped it down to sort of a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday thing. But we made sure we had that half hour, and we themed each one of those days. If I remember rightly, Monday was about goals and lessons. So we looked back on the previous week. Did we achieve our goals? Come back to that, daily sales target. Did we achieve that? Did we close the deal we thought we were going to do? Or did we have the discovery calls? Did we make the new stakeholder connections? How have we done on that? And then we take lessons. Everything has a lesson. It could be a positive. It can be, learning. It's like, okay, we did that. That worked really well. Make sure we keep doing that. Or it can be.
You document that at the time? So this is you sort of, this might be you with the sales team and you sort of just make a note of it or bring it up again?
I guess we tried. We weren't very good at it. And we were just in sort of like team sites and things like, things like
Tricky
that.
Things to do, that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, just there's that sprawl of information.
Yes.
They may not have achieved goals or something,
or
they may have smashed the goals, but it's actually about understanding a lesson because that's what gives you the incremental gain and that side of things. So what new opportunities and what's progressed this month or this week? It's actually about establishing those habits. It's the cadence of meetings and the accountability and that sort of shared collaboration and not being scared of accepting a failure or a mistake, because then we can learn from that and we share that.
So, communication, but learnings throughout. And do you think that was key to why you managed to hit the level you did with your MSP? Because I think that's, it's certainly probably one of the larger ends of the scale, I'd say, for the people listening, maybe. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm a great believer in sales culture. It's not about shouting at the end when we're not making target or whatever it may be.
Listen, I think that's a really nice segue. We've got loads of tactical stuff out there, which that's brilliant. We have this section in the show, which is industry manure. And this is stuff that you hear where you just think, that doesn't sit well with me at all. Everyone's saying the same thing, or I'm getting this advice, but it doesn't ring true for me when I've lived it.
Yeah, there's several probably. And my experience as an MSP was unfortunately there's lots where it's just really about selling that product, and we all know the MSP community is a great community. MSPs are very collaborative, typically, and the vendor community around that. But the manure piece is when you get maybe a sort of lazy partner that comes and thinks they can just use the word community and
yes,
MSP is going to start to work for them. We all have to work hard at what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes you feel like you're hang on a minute, I've just left and I've just had a full sales pitch throughout the whole event. And others, it's total collaboration, sharing, and your problems shared and halved, etc. Brilliant. Listen, so we have a final section for you, kind of broken into two bits. So it's past the pitchfork. So this is where we get to ask you a question from a previous guest. Amy Luby was on the last episode, and she's got a question for you. So this is around AI. So it's AI and sales. So she said, I'd love to know, and if so, how are they leveraging the AI sales tools today? So it's kind of a where does AI sit? There's some great stuff out there, but how does it actually help in terms of conversations, targeting, closing, what they're actually using that's can really help in the sales process, if anything? Or is it just stuff that seems to be on the peripheral? So is there anything you think, okay, yeah, that's really probably going to help with the methodologies that I believe in?
And that's the really early days of, when Copilot, was first released from, to the market a couple of years or so back. So I think it's using it to understand, a lot more about the time saving around, creating your content and your proposals and bits and pieces, like that. But it's not about just sort of going to a chat GPT and just copying and pasting, but it's really around actually trying to inspire, I guess. That's how I've used it. Is okay, you sit there and you got a bit of writer's block, etc. You don't know how to articulate a point you're trying to get across. You can't get it from here onto the paper. So that's how I've used it. That's no more than sort of process automation. One is really around actually, the amount of time organisations have to almost recreate or respond to questions from customers and prospects that are always asked in slightly different ways, but ultimately are trying to get to the same, root understanding of something that we do.
Totally agree with you. It really feels like knowledge is power at the moment, and you can get that from cool transcripts and all that kind of stuff. There's some of the sentiment that we get through in the business that we understand that we may have missed otherwise through transcripts and things, and analysing those is huge.
I mean, for the service desk, it must be game changing. Just sort of the tonality of emails coming in, or even voice recordings. It must be absolutely.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Graham, listen, thanks. It's been awesome talking to you. I need to get one question for you, though. So I know who the next guest is. It's my man, Joe Rojas from Start, Grow, Manage. So similar kind of role to yourself over in the States, actually. So I reckon you've got to make this a sales one. Have you got a sales question you can put to him? And he's a bit of a guru, so you have to try and challenge him.
Think about this. So how does he overcome the barriers that he will come across when trying to actually encourage MSPs to invest for the long term in their sales and marketing operation?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm just going to push you slightly further on that. What do you see? What are the barriers that you see? Or give us one. What's one of the?
I think it's if you look at the financials, when an organisation is looking at the financials and needing that sort of ROI type thing, they're very short term. We talked earlier about sales and marketing needing to be a longer term view. So I guess how do you overcome, I guess, those buyers that may be more financially driven, expecting shorter term ROI? But we all know, sitting from the sales side, that it takes it's a long game.
Excellent. Okay, Joe's going to have some fun with that one. Brilliant. So listen, time finally for a yell from the barn. So tell us about what you're up to these days. So we've only just recently been in each other's networks, and so I feel like you've been around the industry for a long time, which is so often the case. You work within this sort of bubble of people that sort of go to the events and stuff. You haven't been, but I feel like you're really putting a push on now and getting known. And so what is it? What's the message you're looking to take out there, and what are you up to? What value can you offer?
I mean, I've been IT all straight out of school. I talked about the HP, being on the sort of fixing the kit. So having taken the sort of the leap from sort of the MSP side into more sort of the MSP advisory side, what I really reflected on when I made that change was what makes me tick, what makes me happy, and it's seeing the success. It's seeing how that impacts other people, whether that's just more enjoyment in their job or the likes, higher income or greater success, peer recognition. So that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm taking all those experiences and trying to sort of help in a very hands-on way MSPs overcome. I don't want to sort of give somebody a blueprint or some documents and some structure and sort of touch base every hour, every month or something. If they get a call or an email in from a prospect or a customer they're trying to work with, and there's a bit of an objection, they don't know how to do it, I want them to be able to call me and WhatsApp me, and we'll work through it together. We might have to do some role play or some coaching or the likes there, so it's very hands-on. The biggest thing really is that through working with me or other sales coaches that are around, then our success, we can only be deemed successful if we do grow your sales. And so I'm quite happy to put, a guarantee behind that. So any of the retained fees I do, there's a chunk of that actually is success only, because I genuinely believe that there's always something, there's always some little nugget, something that's been overlooked or not found within a business that gives you the potential to grow.
And you've got the experience to spot it. Graham,
Totally.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. Where's the best place to get hold of you? Is it a LinkedIn request?
Yeah.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So I've got detail on LinkedIn, and there's a Calendly link on there as well for sort of one-to-one, free one-to-one advisory. So,
wonderful. Yeah. I hope we get to do some more content together in the future. And thank you so much for your time. That's been mega valuable for people listening.
That's been great. Glad you enjoyed it, James. Thanks for the invite.
Cheers. All the best.
All right, thank you.
I was so excited about that conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Graham because he's got so much experience, but he's so humble. You almost wouldn't know it. He's very grounded, but he's not talking theory. He's actually lived it, which is brilliant. So I picked out a few points there. There were loads more in this interview, so I hope you've managed to get lots more. But key things, the white space reviews, make sure they're happening. The stakeholder mapping you mentioned as well. I think that's another important one, and definitely resisting that urge to discount. This is all stuff you can do right away. You start putting into your business. So just pick one habit from the episode. You can't do them all. Just pick one, work it into your team rhythm this week. And as we know, the wins come from doing it, not just knowing it. And as Nigel Moore would say, carry water, chop wood, isn't it? It's the book. Yeah, get the work done. Till next time. Okay, that is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.